Hello there folks, my name is Spoonks and welcome back to an episode of Box Office Chat. This is the show where we break down the top 5 domestic box office results, see where each movie landed, and see how well each movie did. So let's get started. Number 5 was Avatar Fire and Ash, making $5.6 million this weekend, bringing its domestic total to $386 million and its worldwide total to $1.4 billion. So yeah, Avatar is definitely heading for its slowdown period now. The hype has definitely significantly died down. I think it's going to feel the brunt of the competition very, very soon. It's slowly but surely getting to 400 million domestically and 1.5 billion worldwide. I think that's just going to be the final milestones this movie's going to achieve. Despite how successful it was over the holidays, it's clear it just didn't hit as hard as The Way of Water did. I just don't think this really, despite it looking like it would, continue the trajectory that these movies have. It's just, the steam train has slowed down for this movie a lot. The hype has definitely died down. The holidays really boosted this a lot, but after that, it's been doing as well as you would expect for like a big blockbuster like this. But again, Avatar set the high bar for itself with the previous entries. Many people were hoping this would be a $2 billion movie like the other ones, and it's gonna it's definitely not gonna get there, unfortunately. It definitely has declined from the other movies for sure, which is crazy to say about, again, because this is still a $1 billion movie, a 400 million domestic movie as well. But considering how high the bar was the other two movies raised for themselves, it is a bit underwhelming that this movie wasn't able to do as well as those. So yeah, still it's still a huge blockbuster, but it's not the blockbuster they were hoping for. Like I said, even James Cameron seems to realize this with that interview he did a couple weeks ago. So yeah, still, a lot of money, a big blockbuster, but compared to the other two, certainly underwhelming. Not a bomb, not a flop. I wouldn't even call it a big underperformer, but certainly underwhelming box office for this. Number 4 was Zootopia 2, making $5.9 million this weekend, bringing its domestic total to $409 million and its worldwide total to $1.7 billion. On the opposite side, you have Zootopia 2, which I think is safe to say that it's doing what everyone thought Avatar would do, which just continue to just leg out. I mean, folks, really think about this. This movie has been in the top 5 since November. It's been in the top 5 for 10 weekends now, and it's still crushing it. It almost outlasted Avatar this weekend, because originally the estimates had Shelter in number 5, but the actuals showed Avatar at number 5. It was almost about to outlast it, but even if so, it still managed to beat it. Again, despite being out longer, the word of mouth has just been dominating, and again, it's really the animated movie to see right now, despite the fact that it's also available to watch on digital. And it definitely rebounded, considering the major winter storm that affected a lot of theaters last weekend, as it went up from last weekend, above 12% from last weekend to be exact, which again is really remarkable. Again, a lot of theaters were closed last weekend, but still, though, again, the fact that I was still able to beat Avatar, stay in the top 5, and rebound like this has been really impressive to see. It's still one of the big success stories of last year, certainly the biggest success story of the holidays for sure. I think it's really just something else that this movie has performed to the degree it has. I do think we're going to see this movie lose its luster a bit these coming weekends. We got a pretty big weekend in terms of sports that's going to affect this movie, and then the week after, obviously, the next big animated movie hits theaters. But still, though, the fact that this movie has just dominated to this degree is really exceptional, very impressive. Number 3 was Melania, opening with $7.1 million this weekend domestically and $7.2 million worldwide. Now, I feel like there's been a bit, some misinformation spread about this movie. The movie didn't cost $70 million to make, which is what a lot of people have been saying. In actuality, the movie cost $40 million to make, and they spent an additional $35 million to promote the movie. And going back to the $40 million budget, $28 million was used to pay Melania herself. So even with that, this is still not the best opening to me. This is comparable to like the faith-based movies or even some anime films. It plays to a very specific audience, and that audience went out to see this movie. They went out to support this in because they were so fascinated by the documentary or whatever. But it's clear it didn't like transcend. The audience didn't grow outside of this specific core audience. And despite them really liking the film, it did get an A on CinemaScore. Again, just outside of that, not much interest was there for this movie really. So I feel like this is gonna play more like what we've seen with like those anime films or the faith-based films. They play to their specific audience and it manages to crack the top 5, but then after it's just a very front-loaded opening. It falls after. Again, I'm just not seeing no signs of growth, expansion for this audience. But hey, it cracked the top 5 at least. Number 2 was Iron Lung, which opened to $17 million this weekend domestically and $21 million worldwide. This is really one of the big success stories in quite some time. I know everybody knows who Markiplier is, and I know this game has its fan base, but I don't think many people were expecting this movie to explode to this degree. Obviously, there's the video of Markiplier realizing how big the film was with how many theaters it was releasing, which is honestly a really sweet, touching video. You should go check it out. But even with that knowledge, that information, I didn't think this movie would reach that high. This movie received very, very little marketing. It didn't go through the traditional studio system that Raka Raka or Chris Stuckman had. This was all by him. He had to finance the movie himself and release the movie himself. And this is a really strong achievement for him. Again, all he had to do was just tell his subscribers, tell his followers, hey, I have a movie, it's out in a lot of theaters, go see it. And see it they did, man. And that, again, just a really, really strong success story here. It's really, honestly, it's quite the inspirational story, if I'm being honest with you, because again, he did all of this by himself. Obviously, he didn't make the movie by himself, but to fund the movie, release the movie, he had to do that all by himself. And to see it pay off to this degree really says a lot. And what's even better is that this movie is said to be at least $3 million, and it's more than quintupled that budget already. So again, just a huge success story in and of itself. I am curious to see how this legs out. Again, I think this is probably going to be on the more front-loaded side of things. This movie wasn't pulled on CinemaScore, but from what I'm hearing, people like it all right. Nothing astonishing or game-changing, but people are enjoying it. It seems to me that people respect the movie more than they actually like it. But still, though, the fact that this movie was able to open to this big of a number and make this type of money is absolutely insane. So again, just props to Markiplier, props to everyone involved in this movie for such a huge successful opening. And finally, let's end the video off with the number 1 movie of the weekend, which was Send Help, opening with $19 million this weekend domestically and $27 million worldwide. This is the biggest opening for a horror film this year, topping Iron Lung 28 years later and Primate, and it's the biggest opening of the year overall, once again topping Iron Lung 28 years later, Primate, and Mercy. So I had my reservations about this movie. I was expecting it to top the box office and maybe even overperform slightly, but given how lackluster the month was, I decided to keep my expectations a bit lower. I was just setting myself up for disappointment, honestly. I didn't see the buzz or the hype around it until the reviews started to trickle in. And then all of a sudden, this movie just took on a life of its own. I could not stop hearing people talk about this, hyping it up. And I really think that interest really just grew organically and caused the film to really just blow up to the degree it did and really, overperform to this extent, which is honestly quite refreshing to see something like this. It's not a Sinners or a Weapons, but for the type of movie this is, a survivalist film just involving 2 people stuck on an island, that is quite refreshing to see achieve this level of box office success. And the plus side is that the movie's only $40 million. It's made a majority of that back. Obviously, a lot of that came from domestic, but still, it seems that this movie really was able to bring a lot of people into the theater this weekend through, not just the strong marketing, but also just the solid word of mouth, it seems. And people seem to be really enjoying it as well. Obviously, critics have been enjoying it. Last I checked, it was at 93% on Rotten Tomatoes, and audiences seem to be enjoying it as well. It got a B plus on Cinema Score. It's not as strong as 28 Years Later, but it is stronger than Primate. And honestly, even though the score difference is marginal between the two, I'm honestly seeing more positive stuff about, Send Help, if I'm being honest with you. Granted, more people have seen this movie, but still, though, I've seen a lot more positive takes and reception towards this movie than The Bone Temple earlier this year. And I really do hope this movie legs out and overperforms like it did this opening weekend throughout the rest of its theatrical run. Obviously, this weekend, it's going to face a big bump in the road, which we'll discuss later in the video. But hopefully after that, it continues to bounce back after that and legs out to the degree. Because again, I'm seeing a lot of strong signs with this movie. Again, the reception and word of mouth has been really strong thus far. It had a really solid budget for itself. The marketing was strong, and it delivered a really strong opening as a result. So yeah, a really strong way to end a lackluster month at the movies. Really happy that this movie overperformed to the degree it did, and hopefully can continue on this successful path throughout its theatrical run. Again, there's a bump in the road this weekend, but hopefully it'll rebound after that and continue the strong success it's had with its opening. Yeah, just a really strong opening for Send Help. And those were your top 5 domestic box office results for this weekend, and normally this would be the part of the video where I discuss the upcoming new wide releases and seeing where they would land in the top 5. But given what's occurring this weekend, those being the start of the Winter Olympics and the Super Bowl, I don't think it's going to be a very big weekend at the movies. Most people are going to stay home to witness these very big sporting events taking place this weekend. So don't expect much box office numbers this weekend. I'm sure some of the newer movies will shake up the top 5, but not leave as much of an impact as some of the movies that did this weekend prior. But we'll see which movies land in the top 5 and how well they do on the next Box Office Chat. And that's going to do it for this week's episode of Box Office Chat. What did you all think of the results? Were you satisfied, unsatisfied? Comment down below and let me know. If you like this video, hit the like button. If you like this channel, hit the subscribe button. Follow me on all those social media links right there. And until next time, everyone, stay sharp.